Welcome to the Vine Resources Podcast Show with your host, David Lawrence.
Welcome to another edition of the Vine Resources Podcast Show. I'm delighted to have today with us Richard FitzGerald. Richard is the CEO of RMG, which is Racecourse Media Group. Richard, thanks so much for joining us.
Great pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Well, look, Richard, I'd love to share with our listeners who may not have heard of Racecourse Media Group, and an amazing business as we just talked about, turning over 150 million. But Richard, could you share with our listeners a bit about your company and what you do to the wider world?
Of course. So Racecourse Media Group was set up in 2004 by our Racecourse shareholders. There was a business plan set up originally around at the races, and the business model relied heavily on the good old days of the red button for betting. It was rather unfortunate that business model didn't work out, and the racecourses were left with a precarious financial situation and with limited distribution. So one group stayed of racecourses stayed within the old business, and my shareholders, which were approximately 30 of the racecourses, went off and set up their own business to control their own media and data rights. And that's how RMG was formed in 2004, and it's been quite a journey ever since.
And I know you said there's around 35 employees in the company. You've got head office in Victoria and your production site in West London. Is that right?
That is correct. We have about 35 in head office, which is the marketing teams, the sales teams, finance, and some other support functions. Down in Ealing, in the old-fashioned Ealing studios, where they make all the films and still do, we have another 45 people. And then on the road, there's about circa another 100 people who work exclusively for us, producing all of the pictures off the racecourses. And that's a lot of output, as there's something like 37. We have 37 racecourses now, and most of them will have something like 20 race days a year. So we'll have something in the region of 750 meetings that we cover, and that's a lot of OBs and a lot of live racing. So we'll do something like 2,400 live hours of racing from across all of our multiple racecourses. And we're very lucky that we've just announced that we've secured the Irish rights from the 1st of January. So we'll secure another 340 or so Irish rights to go into the business. So it's a busy time.
Very busy. Well, look, thanks for giving us the time. So I'm going to jump into some of those questions. Obviously, you've seen the market change over the last 10 years or 14 years since you've had the business. And obviously, I'm sure the company's changed. But can you share with us now what a typical day looks like for you as the CEO?
Gosh, as the CEO, as I've just said, it's a busy old business. I think the days of when for example, I ran Aston Villa for a short time, the days when you had 40 matches a year, gosh, wouldn't that be nice? We basically run racing 360 days a year. So we have live racing, could be as many as 8 meetings on a day. So it's constant day-to-day items coming up, whether it's even related to the racecourse coverage, or because we have our own route to market, we have our own channels, we have our own customers. There's an awful lot of discussion that comes out of that. So busy from that perspective. Stakeholder management in racing. I don't know whether you know very much about racing's management, central management. It's quite a complex relationship between the BHA, who are effectively responsible for integrity and administration. You've then got the Horsemen's Group, which are effectively the owners and trainers and jockeys who get together and represent that aspect. And then there's the Racecourse Group, and those three effectively operate racing. And there's a lot of management even within that, and particularly when you've got 37 racecourse shareholders, there's a lot of communication to be done. And we try and work really closely with those racecourses. That's been the success of the business, being able to work closely with them, making sure that the commercialization of their business, and actually one of the big parts is actually protection of those. So a lot of piracy, we have to work on obviously trying to protect those rights, But there's a lot of work that goes on with them, making sure that the commercialization doesn't run head into their own businesses, and that's taken a lot of time, particularly with the new disruptors and a lot of things that have come along. So it's a lot of communication. We believe a lot in data, so we have data analysts, and we really started to get into data as really critical for our business. We work very closely with the betting side of the world. Really important that we understand what the shape of the fixture list should look like, what type of racing we should be putting on, and all those types of things that ultimately drive the revenues for our business.
Richard, I know that sport obviously is a big passion of yours. I believe going back to some of the football years before the racing. I'm just curious if anyone has had a tremendous impact on you as a leader, and perhaps even if they were mentored to you, and how they impacted how you've shaped your life.
Well, that was an easy one. Actually, that's an easy one. I was very lucky. I started in this a long time ago. I joined IMG back in 1987, before Sky even existed, and I was very lucky to spend a lot of time over the following 18 years, or unfortunately not 18 years because he passed away before I left, but with Mark McCormack himself, the founder of the sports marketing and media industry. And I got to know him and his family very well. And yes, he had a huge impact on my life. And I was lucky enough to have spent best part of 30 years working in live sport, seen the world, done an enormous amount of things. And I learned he was the guy. And I was lucky enough to, spend a lot of time with him and understand him, and and just admire him from close up as well as from afar as to what he delivered. I mean, he's just an amazing guy.
That's fantastic to hear. And Richard, I'm curious, just switching topic a little bit, but equally as important, because it obviously sounded like he valued his people. What are you doing to really keep your employees engaged in the organisation now from the top?
Right, it is tough these days. We're lucky enough where we're a small enough group. So when we bring people in, generally the theme is related to racing, horse racing. So we're in a good place there, so that when people generally come in, they're interested. We're an open plan office, so there's no secrets. That's the good news. There's no secrets, and the bad news is there's no secrets, so you know everything that's going on. But it does allow us to communicate, and the top and the bottom of the organisation do work very closely together. We try not to be too hierarchical, and we try and communicate as much as possible. You can never communicate as much as you should, but I think that we're generally everybody knows what everybody's doing, and we work closely together. And when you're in the same office, it works. And we encourage everybody to go horse racing. So there's no, we actually want people to go out and spend the day at the Grand National or at the Derby, and that really helps in getting people out. We do a fair amount of. We work very hard trying to also do office parties and things. When I say parties, get-togethers. We're always good for a celebration, either someone having a baby or someone leaving. We try and celebrate that. And we always celebrate everybody's birthday with a bottle of champagne and a sing-along, which sounds very naff, but you'd be amazed quite how it does actually. People do appreciate it, a card and we all sing along happy birthday, which I have got pretty good at singing happy birthday, by the way, just for the record.
Richard, what's the biggest challenge you believe that's facing business leaders right now?
Well, I think different business leaders probably have their own biggest challenge. I think in our space, and I think it probably is for a lot of people, disruptors. And what I mean by disruptors, I mean in our industry, and there's no reason why broadcasters and should have it to themselves, but the whole FANGs has been quite challenging for us. And I'm assuming everybody knows what the FANGs are, so I won't go through that. And to some extent, everybody thinks they're an expert in media these days, and sometimes I think certain people should sometimes just step back think a little bit about it and not always jump on the bandwagon. I think it's for the leaders just to make sure that they make good decisions and just hold back sometimes, because I think sometimes people run after ideas, think it's the holy grail. Secondly, if there was one for us, that racing is very much linked to economic growth. I think there is a slight concern that the economy may struggle a little bit in the coming years, and that will have a direct impact on both number of horses in training, which is an important part of what we do, plus just economic impact on betting, although generally in betting hasn't historically been linked to economic growth. It usually is reasonably flat, even in downturns.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the next couple of years brings, Richard. I hope it's more positive than negative. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received that you could share with us?
Oh, it's very simple. It's really a McCormack thing, really. Everything we do in business is really about relationships. Feel strongly about that. I like to do business with people I know and trust, but it's how you treat people. You want to give them, it's about trust and people. And if anybody forgets that, then that's the beginning of the end when it comes to doing deals and growing businesses. So really, that's the number one, really.
How are you helping when you have a new employee join the company? How are you helping them to understand the culture in the business?
Oh my goodness. We now do a full induction process, which I think was very easy to miss over. You just assumed everybody would just start and know what you're going on. So we work quite hard at that. We now do, we generally try and sit down and we have what we call a shareholders update. So we make sure that everybody gets, which is a bit like a prospectus every year, or a set of accounts, and like a PLC, really. So you can always try and give those to everybody so they can sit down. And generally, we embrace them. We try and do meetings with them. We try and, again, a lot of them do understand our business because they're key. They understand racing, and a number of them understand betting. So it's actually quite an easy, for a lot of them, it's quite easy to shift into. And I think basically, because we're so small in terms of the head office and everybody talks, that culture comes through from the people around them as well as from the top. So we try a little bit of osmosis, but it does seem to work.
What's the one mistake that you've witnessed leaders making more frequently than others?
I think communications is probably is the problem. I always have said in our business, we won't fail because of making profits. We'll fail because of not communicating properly. So I think that is one of the major things. Short-termism, we always try and look long-term. We're lucky enough to be owned by Racecourses. They've been going for 300 years. Racing will still be going in another 100, 200 years. So I don't really feel under pressure on a daily basis to do deals, and often deals that you rush often aren't good deals. So I think that is short-termism can really be very very dangerous for leaders.
You talked a little bit earlier about disruptors in the industry, and there's disruptors obviously in every industry. But how do you see your industry changing in the future? And the second point of my question is, and how do you think it'll affect your ability to attract and hire the right talent for you?
Ooh, okay. I think the disruptors, every industry has disruptors. It'd be quite nice to be a disruptor. So one of the things we're looking at is to see if we can be a disruptor, because I just don't think you have to sit there and take disruption. So that's the thing I think it's taken us a while to work out where this all lands up in terms of media and social media, and where the value is and what the people actually want. And so I think it's taken us a couple of years, which I'm pleased that we have taken. We haven't panicked. We haven't done anything that has knocked us off our vision. We're very lucky to have ITV as our main shop window for the sport. They do something like 92 to 94 days, which is amazing for a sport like ours, and we think it's absolutely critical for for racing, keeping us out there in the national psyche. They do a fantastic job of broadcasting racing. So, we didn't try and, I think a lot of the sports have gone off and tried to do deals with the fangs, and I think and sometimes have shown a little bit of disrespect to their traditional partners. And I think I hope that doesn't come back to bite them. I think we are lucky on the basis that we have an attractive industry to be in. I think we are also treated as a very successful business, and I think we have cut through. When I started 10 years ago, I don't think racing was really perceived as a sport by certainly the people in the sports industry and probably myself. But I think we've successfully cut through on that, and therefore I think we are perceived as a good place to work. We've certainly been innovative, and we've certainly been pretty commercial. But in terms of hiring people, that's not so difficult. But I think the real issue is the type of people we're trying to hire are different. The millennials, it's not just about money, although London is really tough. When you're starting off in sport, it's tough to be able to survive in London at London rates. So that's a challenge, and I'm afraid too many people are ending up commuting, but it seems to work, or they've got mates, so we seem to be getting over that. But it's a bit more than that. It's about trying to give them opportunity. I think we have to work harder at that, which we do. I don't think, we're trying not to be too hierarchical so that people don't, feel that they've got to wait for the next job. And the disruption factor does allow us to do things very differently. So, some of the stuff that we're doing with our online tools, our OTT capabilities we're about to roll out. I'm just thrilled that within 6 months, a group of, I'm going to say, young guys sat down, worked it all out, and we'll be launching our Apple TV services, our Amazon Fire Stick services, our smart TV services, and we'll be rolling those out with not just the traditional functionality, but with real interactive functionality on the TV set. We could not have done that 5 years ago. A, we wouldn't have had the talent to do it, and B, we wouldn't have had the tools to do it. And it's and it has been at a reason, and it has not been a major investment. It's about getting the right people in the room, understanding the capabilities, and using our platforms. And it really is quite exciting. So from that perspective, I think we're in a good place.
Brilliant. Richard, final question for you. If you had your time again and were given your 20-year-old self advice, what's the one thing that you would look back now and say?
Oh, gosh. Good question. So probably it took me a few years. I've been doing this for a long time, and I am actually an accountant. So basically, I should have been good with numbers, and I should have been good at listening. I probably wasn't a very good listener for the first 20 years of my 30 years, and it's taken me a while to really become a good listener. I think that's really important as time goes on. And I think I've probably done it, but you can never spend too much time on recruitment, getting the right people. It's all about the team, whether we like it or not. Too many of us have historically thought it was all about me and I'm indispensable. The one thing I have certainly learned is everybody is dispensable, including the CEO, and I've no issues with that. So yeah, recruitment probably is something we still don't spend enough time on, even though I think we probably do more than most, but absolutely critical to the success of a business.
Great, Richard. Thanks so much for sharing that. And look, thank you for answering all the questions and sharing so much insight into the business with our listeners today. What's the best way that they can reach out to you if they want to find out more about the company or get in touch with you?
I'm pretty open as long as they keep it within hours. The probably easiest is my email address, which is richard.fitzgerald@racinguk.com.
Brilliant. And obviously they can look at the website as well at the same address.
We have a Racing UK. We have a holding company, which is the Racecourse Media Group.com, which just gives you a bit more of the corporate side of it. But if you're really trying to see what our business is in terms of horse racing, particularly in the UK, you'll get the flavour of it from racinguk.com.
Brilliant. And look out for the OTT offering coming soon, basically.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Richard, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate your time.
No, great pleasure, David.
We really hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please take a moment to give us a review. 4 stars would be good, but 5 stars would be amazing.